Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to explore what the Distortus Rex really is. In the vast and increasingly dark universe of Jurassic World, creatures emerge that not only defy scientific logic, but also shatter every limit we thought we understood about fear. But among all the genetic aberrations forged in InGen's clandestine laboratories, there is one that stands out like a shadow that cannot be contained. A force as brutally silent as it is terrifyingly meticulous. The Distortus Rex, known to some simply as the D-Rex, as if abbreviating its name could somehow make its existence any less monstrous. Its presence in the film's promotional material was barely hinted at, as if the filmmakers themselves knew that revealing too much too soon would betray the impact they had reserved. But when it finally appears, its arrival isn't merely physical. It's narrative, it's atmospheric. It's a statement of intent. The Distortus Rex doesn't just attack. It comes to remind us what happens when human ambition breaks its own chains. Today, in this video, we're going to dive into the untold story of this creature. A story that slides between the edges of the official and the forbidden, to unearth its origin, dissect its design, understand its behavior, and above all, see how it became one of the central pieces in the film's most harrowing climax. That said, this analysis is filled with spoilers. So, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I recommend watching it first. I'll be right here when you get back. Now then, let's travel to the beginning. The birth of the Distortus Rex was not a mistake, nor a desperate accident from an out-of-control lab. It was a decision, a premeditated choice. Its story begins at a pivotal point in the saga, when Jurassic World stopped being a mere scientific experiment and transformed into a global phenomenon, a multi-billion-dollar attraction that promised to domesticate the impossible. Its grand opening in May 2005 marked the fulfillment of John Hammond's dream, though ironically, he never lived to see it realized. The man who finally brought it to life was Simon Masrani, the charismatic entrepreneur who took control of InGen after the financial disaster caused by the incidents on Isla Nublar and San Diego. That very debacle, the rampage of the Tyrannosaurus known as Buck through an urban center in desperate search of its offspring, left InGen in ruins. Masrani Global seized the opportunity, acquiring it like someone purchasing the remnants of a failed experiment to build a newer, bigger one. However, the park's initial success was short-lived. As often happens when Marvel turns to routine, the sense of wonder began to fade. The T-Rex was no longer the king of the attraction. Visitors wanted more, something breathless. And that's when Masrani turned to the only man capable of rewriting the DNA of entertainment, Dr. Henry Wu. The order was clear: create something never seen before. Not just a dinosaur, an experience. A beast designed for awe, for fear, for marketing. That's how the concept of genetically engineered entertainment was born. And with it, the Indominus Rex, or at least, that's what we were led to believe. Because before the Indominus, something else had already been unleashed. Something more primitive, more unpredictable, more dangerous. The most ambitious and inhumane. Experiments weren't conducted on Isla Nublar under the gaze of tourists. No, they were carried out far from public scrutiny. In hidden facilities across the Five Deaths Archipelago near Costa Rica, and on an even more remote island near Barbados, whose exact location remains classified. These labs were chosen precisely for that. Isolation. Because there were no regulations there. No bioethics committees, just science and its arrogance. In a previous video, we explored how science fiction, from Alien to Blade Runner, has warned that every step toward biological perfection carries a monstrous price. In Alien Resurrection, for example, the failed clones of Ellen Ripley embodied the pain and failure that lurk behind every genetic experiment. With the Distortus Rex, that same pattern repeated, only this time with scales and claws. Even before the Indominus existed as a concept, InGen was already experimenting with DNA combinations straight out of a Darwinian nightmare. On Isla Sorna, classified files reveal the existence of hypertrophied Spinosauruses, Quetzalcoatlus with wings like living curtains of bone and muscle, titanosaurs with deformed skull structures, and velociraptors with skeletons that defied cataloging. It was in this environment, in the blurred line between research and madness, that the first prototype of what would become known as the Distortus Rex emerged. Although its genetic core was rooted in the Tyrannosaurus rex, scientists spliced it with other species, both prehistoric and modern: marine reptiles, poisonous amphibians, raptors, and nocturnal mammals. The result was something that should not exist: a creature with biology as unstable as its temperament, a hybrid with unique abilities, but with structural flaws that made it unpredictable, even to its creators. And yet, it wasn't destroyed. InGen chose to preserve it. Why? Because its genetic code held clues, possible pathways. Yes, it was a disaster, but a useful one. A map of what worked and what didn't. The Distortus Rex was the dress rehearsal, the rough draft before a more polished performance, the necessary error before the Indominus Rex, and long before the Indoraptor. According to unofficial records, the D-Rex was created between late 2010 and early 2011. But that same year, a security breach caused by human negligence allowed it to escape. The operator on duty was killed instantly. The monster vanished into the jungle, taking the secrets of its creation with it. Scientists barely escaped with the crucial data and some genetic samples. Recapturing it was impossible. All they could do was hope it would die in isolation. But the D-Rex did not die. It adapted. It fed. It became a legend. In the uncontrolled ecosystem of that forgotten island, the Distortus Rex didn't just survive, it ruled. It hunted and devoured other failed creations, like the Mutodons, flying hybrids that combined the speed of a velociraptor with the aerial savagery of a pteranodon. Its body grew beyond expectations. Its skin changed color. Its silence became its deadliest weapon. And its intelligence, almost human. When InGen collapsed and Masrani Global was dismantled after the park scandal, the island was completely abandoned. But the hybrids didn't vanish. Many, like the mutated titanosaurs, managed to establish a new ecological balance. A mutant ecosystem. Artificial, yet stable. In this ruleless kingdom, the Distortus Rex was the ruler and the most feared monster. Its appearance in the film is reserved for the climax, and that's no coincidence. It's a narrative bomb, contained throughout the entire runtime, released at the most desperate moment. In the third act, a group of Parker Genix pharmaceutical employees arrives at the ruins of InGen's old lab, hoping to be extracted. They activate a geothermal generator as a rescue signal, but they didn't know that this energy source would also be a beacon for predators. As chaos erupts, Henry Loomis and Donna Kincaid try to make their way through the rubble. The helicopter can't land. Donna screams not to be left behind. Henry, desperate, fires a flare into the sky. That flare, meant to be a promise of salvation, becomes a siren's call that lures the D-Rex. And with a roar that cuts through the night like a saw, hell is unleashed. At the most electrifying moment of the climax, when everything seems to hang by a thread, tension condenses like the vapor that blankets the jungle, becoming almost unbearable. There, amid the dense mist that hangs over the landscape like a funeral veil, the Distortus Rex glides with unnatural grace. Its movement is almost imperceptible, a whisper among broken branches and wet leaves. It advances silently, concealed by the fog that not only distorts vision but also absorbs sound. The entire atmosphere seems to hold its breath as the creature stealthily approaches Henry Loomis, who barely perceives a vibration in the air. What is felt is not simply danger. It is the very presence of the abyss. The T-Rex doesn't need to be seen to induce panic. It is a living specter, a predator that does not roar to intimidate, but waits, studies, and kills when silence is absolute. But just at that moment of sustained tension, something interrupts the hunt. A subtle buzzing, growing louder like a mechanical insect in the distance, pierces the atmosphere. A helicopter approaches. The blades cut through the air, carrying with them the promise of salvation for the survivors. But that hope quickly turns into a death sentence. The Distortus Rex lifts its disfigured skull toward the sky and turns its attention with lethal precision. What follows is pure brutality in its rawest form. In an explosion of contained force, the T-Rex bursts out of the underbrush with devastating speed, rams the helicopter, and destroys it mid-flight as if it were a simple metal insect. The blades fly through the air like erratic blades. The fuselage splits apart. Flames engulf the machine. Not a trace of the aircraft remains. Only a crater of fire, charred debris, and the heart-wrenching echo of hope shattered. The impact of the attack paralyzes the human group for only a moment. Then panic ensues. They regroup as best they can amid screams, mud, and burning ash. In a desperate act, they flee through the remains of the complex, entering an old underground drainage network, a forgotten relic of InGen's infrastructure. Underground, the damp and rusty tunnels reverberate with the group's hurried footsteps. There, in the dark, they find an evacuation boat, rusted, abandoned, but functional, their salvation. However, the exit is sealed by a metal gate. There is no power, no remote access, only an old manual panel located outside the tunnel on open ground. The dilemma is unavoidable. Someone has to go out. It is Isabella, the youngest of the group, who makes the decision. Without asking permission, without hesitation, she slips her slight body through the tunnel bars and sneaks outside. With slow, almost crawling movements, she reaches the control panel. Meanwhile, inside the tunnel, the others watch her with restrained anguish. The shadows lengthen, and then without warning, the beast reappears. The T-Rex peers out from the underbrush. It doesn't roar. It doesn't attack. It just stops in front of the tunnel and looks at them. With its small, dark yellow eyes, like glowing coals, it scans the trapped adults. And it does so with a chilling mixture of curiosity and animal instinct. It does not see them as enemies. It sees them as a puzzle it does not yet fully understand. Finally, the gate opens with a creak that sounds like a metallic lament. The survivors don't hesitate. They run toward the exit with everything they have left. But just when it seems they have made it, an unexpected sound interrupts their escape, the roar of an engine. A jeep bursts onto the scene, crashing through the vegetation like a projectile. Behind the wheel is the human face of horror. Martin Krebs, the greedy and unscrupulous antagonist, oblivious to the real danger. He stops the vehicle unintentionally, right next to one of the Distortus Rex's legs. Silence is absolute. The creature slowly turns its head toward him. It examines him and destroys him. What follows is a turn as raw as it is visceral. The T-Rex rips Krebs in two with a single swipe. There is no heroism in his death, only the insignificance of man before the creature. His briefcase falls and opens, scattering vials containing DNA of colossal prehistoric species onto the ground. That, we now know, was the real objective of the expedition. And although chaos covers everything, the survivors manage to recover the vials before continuing their escape. Finally, they reach the dock. The boat is there, but chained. As they desperately try to break the chains, they accidentally trigger a security alarm. The metallic shriek of that old system echoes throughout the area. Needless to say, the T-Rex hears it, and it's coming. It is then that Donna Kincaid, one of the group's most resilient figures, makes a last-minute decision that redefines the outcome. She lights a flare, raises it to the sky, and runs into the jungle screaming, drawing the monster's attention toward her. She literally becomes a living beacon of distraction. The D-Rex charges after the light, like a bull after a red cloth. Meanwhile, the rest of the group takes advantage of the moment. They free the boat, start the engine, and head downstream, leaving behind a land they should never have stepped on. Donna, meanwhile, submerges underwater, hiding among roots and silt. The D-Rex prowls. It searches. It tracks. But it doesn't find her. She survives, miraculously, and later, in a suggested post-credits scene, she is seen returning alone to InGen's main laboratory. The ending is not definitive. Her story, clearly, is not over. And that opens the door to a new era, perhaps in a future chapter of Jurassic World. Chaos theory. But what exactly is the Distortus Rex? It is not a simple hybrid. It is an anomaly, a genetic flaw that defies biological classification. A Jurassic Frankenstein with nightmare proportions. Its body is twice the size of an average T-Rex. It measures approximately 15 meters long, with a height nearing 9 meters. It weighs between 7 and 10 tons, but moves with unnatural lightness thanks to a hybrid bone structure. Dense, yes, but filled with strategically placed cavities that reduce its weight. Its speed is comparable to that of a velociraptor, but with the bulk of an armored truck. One of its most striking features is the presence of 6 limbs, 4 robust legs that propel it forward with seismic force, and 2 shorter arms embedded in the torso, designed to manipulate objects or crush prey with precision. This condition, polymelia, makes it an even more unsettling creature. It moves quadrupedally, walking on its knuckles like a mountain gorilla, making it look less like a dinosaur and more like a gigantic, deformed mammal. Each step leaves a deep mark in the ground. And its skull is a macabre masterpiece. Brachycephalic to the point of grotesqueness, its face resembles a skull covered with tight skin. The upper part of its skull is partially translucent, revealing internal bone plates. It's as if it carried its skull exposed, laid bare like a visual declaration of its unnatural nature. Its eyes are small yellow pearls that never blink. Its mouth is filled with hundreds of sharp teeth, without lips to hide them, giving it a permanently aggressive look. Its skin, in earthy tones, changes according to the environment, not by conscious camouflage, but as an involuntary biological response to stress, temperature, or light. It can shift from ochre to reddish-brown or pale orange in minutes. Everything about it is instability made flesh. And yet, it is not driven by malice. The D-Rex does not hate. It does not plan. It survives. Its attacks are not motivated by sadism, as with the Indoraptor. Its movements are dictated by territorial impulses. It reacts. It evaluates. It pauses to observe before attacking, like when it inspects Krebs before destroying him. That pause, that moment of analysis, hints at a rudimentary intelligence, enough to distinguish between threat and curiosity. But it also has flaws. It is extremely sensitive to visual stimuli. Lights distract it. Shadows confuse it. It becomes erratic when it loses a visual focus. Its behavior suggests something akin to a sensory disorder, perhaps a product of its poorly calibrated genetic mix. Regarding endurance, it is nearly invulnerable. It withstands high-caliber impacts, explosions, fire, and keeps moving. Its skin is thick, like an organic armor, and its camouflage makes it invisible under certain conditions, especially in fog or dense forest environments. But it has limits. It is guided by reflexes, not strategy. It moves better at night. During the day, its behavior is more erratic, less efficient.